At midnight, Kochi's floating market smelled like disaster. The monsoon had drowned the only ice plant, and every basket of fish was beginning to sweat. Fishermen stared at silver pomfret turning dull under torn tarps, while floodwater rocked the docks and tomorrow's income leaked away with the tide. Out of that wreck stepped 6 strangers so mismatched they looked like wrong puzzle pieces, dumped together by a storm with a sense of humor. One was a Tamil eel vendor with rope-burned palms, balancing a crate of twisting eels like live question marks. Another was a retired Moroccan tugboat engineer whose beard held raindrops like pearls and whose eyes still measured weight, balance, and failure in a glance. Beside him stood a deaf Keralite chess tutor with chalk in his pocket, reading panic in people's faces the way others read headlines. A Burmese seamstress arrived clutching needles, waxed thread, and strips of tarp, already scanning ripped fabric and sagging joints like hidden wounds. A CCAP coder waded through ankle-deep water with a cracked tablet under his arm, half-drenched but still mapping possibilities in his head. Last came an elderly coconut diver, skin creased like sun-dried rope, carrying a coil of fishing net and moving with the calm of someone who trusted water more than walls. They did not share one easy language, one trade, or one reason to stay, yet the market needed cold storage before sunrise or every family there would lose the day. The first obstacle hit immediately because instructions flew in Tamilam, Punjabi, Arabic, Burmese, gestures, and frustration, then crashed together harder than the rain. Faces tightened, hands waved, and useful ideas vanished in translation while baskets of mackerel warmed by the minute under a bruised purple sky. Instead of forcing everyone into perfect words, the chess tutor knelt on a wet crate and drew a square with wheels in white chalk. He sketched a fish, then a sun, then arrows moving downward, and suddenly 6 confused minds had one visible target. The coder copied the drawing onto his tablet, adding rough symbols for airflow, shade angles, and battery placement so the plan could survive smudged chalk and rain. The engineer pointed to broken temple fans stacked beside the flooded lane, then traced circles in the air and pressed his palm downward for compression. The eel vendor slapped a drum pattern on an empty tuna barrel, creating simple beats for stop, lift, tighten, and test when speech became too slow. The seamstress answered by raising colored threads like flags, tying red for danger points and blue for seams that could carry weight without tearing. The coconut diver ran his fingers through abandoned fishing nets, selecting sections with smaller diamonds that could cradle ice boxes, airflow panels, and tools without sagging. What looked like chaos became a handmade operating system, built from chalk sketches, coded symbols, rhythm, thread, and hands that finally pointed in the same direction. Their second obstacle was uglier than language because every usable material in the market was broken, bent, sacred, soaked, or claimed by someone desperate. The engineer inspected temple fans with rusted cages and warped blades, rejecting 3 with a silent grimace before salvaging 2 motors and 1 usable spindle. The seamstress cut strips from shredded awnings and wedding tent fabric, then layered them into waterproof flaps that could shield the cooling chamber from wet heat. The coder scavenged a half-cracked solar panel from a tourist ferry signboard, wiping algae off the cells with the edge of his turban. The eel vendor bartered old hook weights for a battered handcart frame, then reinforced the axle with pipe clamps pried from a fish scale machine. The coconut diver surfaced from a half-flooded storage pit, holding mirror shards from a collapsed wedding arch, each reflecting lightning like tiny trapped moons. Everyone paused at those mirrors, because broken decoration looked useless, until the chess tutor arranged them around the chalk sun symbol and mimed reflection with sharp finger movements. The coder understood first, angling mirror scraps to concentrate dawn light onto the salvaged panel, then adjusting them like a puzzle made from luck and geometry. The engineer mounted fan motors into a vented box using netting and bamboo, converting wreckage into a crude but elegant circulation system. The seamstress stitched insulation pockets from tarp and coconut fiber stuffing, making the chamber less beautiful than a machine shop and more stubborn than one. The eel vendor packed the cavity with clay jars, soaked husk, and metal trays, because he knew from years on the road that cooling starts with slowing heat. The coconut diver lashed everything together using knots learned underwater, where loose assumptions kill faster than deep breath ever does. Their third obstacle came from time, because the monsoon clouds were thinning, which meant dawn would expose failure just as the fish reached their warmest point. Exhaustion tried to break them apart, showing up as irritation, shaky fingers, careless cuts, and that dangerous thought that maybe this problem was simply too large. The chess tutor caught that collapse early, setting a board of bottle caps on a crate and rearranging them into 6 pieces, protecting one king-shaped fish. He tapped each cap in turn, then placed them together at the center, reminding everyone that strategy fails when the strongest move works alone. The image reset the team better than any speech, because now each person could see their role without needing to defend it. The coders stopped chasing perfection and rewired only the essentials, prioritizing fan speed, charging flow, and tilt angle instead of dreaming about polished software. The engineer trimmed unnecessary metal brackets, reducing weight so the cart could roll on planks without snapping into the canal. The seamstress reinforced only the highest stress seams, proving that finishing the right 10% matters more than fussing over the ornamental 90. The eel vendor reorganized the worksite into zones for tools, fasteners, cloth, and wiring, cutting wasted motion the way a good seller cuts haggling. The coconut diver marked safe walking lines across slippery boards with chalk paste and net strands, preventing one bad fall from ruining the night. By 3 in the morning, they were no longer 6 strangers sharing labor. They were a temporary language made visible through repeated, reliable actions. Rain tapered into mist, and the unfinished cart stood under hanging lanterns like a stitched-together animal waiting for its first breath. Then came the worst moment, the one every real project meets, when they switched on the system and nothing happened except one embarrassed twitch of a fan blade. Shoulders dropped instantly, because effort can survive hardship easier than it survives silence after a test. The engineer examined the motor housing, the coder checked the charge flow, and both missed the fault because they were looking for advanced failure inside simple parts. The elderly diver crouched near the wheelbase and tugged one net lash, revealing a hidden pinch where the main wire had been crushed under decorative mirror trim. The seamstress sliced away the thread binding. The eel vendor replaced the section with copper salvaged from a market scale, and the coder sealed the join with resin tape. The chess tutor then drew 3 thick arrows for airflow and 1 small X where heat was trapping, pushing the engineer to reverse a blade orientation. They tried again, and this time, the fans pulled damp air through shaded vents, across cooled jars, and out through the insulated chamber in one steady movement. It was not magical because it looked perfect. It was magical because ugly pieces were finally cooperating. As the eastern sky paled, the mirror shards caught the first sunlight and redirected it toward the cracked solar panel, like 6 borrowed suns paying one debt. The panel woke slowly, then confidently, feeding enough current to strengthen the fans while the chamber temperature dropped just enough to matter. The eel vendor laid in his first tray of catch, then another seller added prawns, then another stacked sardines, and cold began buying people time. Women who had been calculating losses all night pressed palms to the cart's outer wall and felt the difference with disbelieving smiles. Children ran beside it as the team pushed it down the dock, where fish that should have spoiled were still bright-eyed and firm under the new chill. Word spread across the market faster than the tide, because success that can be touched never needs a translator. Boatmen, spice sellers, porters, and grandmothers gathered in a crescent around the humming cart, watching 6 soaked people grin at one another like survivors of the same impossible exam. Then the whole dock erupted, not for a machine alone, but for the sight of difference turning practical before their eyes. The market did not merely save one morning's catch. It gained a blueprint for surviving the next disaster without waiting for rescue from somewhere richer or farther away. That blueprint was simple enough to carry anywhere. Draw the goal so everyone can see it, strip the task to essentials, and let each person contribute from lived skill. Use whatever language remains when words fail, because a shared sketch, rhythm, pattern, or repeated signal can move a team farther than polished speeches. Hunt for hidden value inside damaged things, whether that means broken fans, discarded cloth, or the overlooked experience of someone others assume is past their prime. When pressure rises, a sign rolls by strength instead of status, because pride is heavy and emergency work moves fastest when ego is left on shore. Test early, fail visibly, and fix the obvious before chasing complex explanations, because many stalled dreams are just one pinched wire from motion. By sunrise, Kochi's floating market had its first solar chilling cart, and 6 stubborn strangers had built something colder than ice and warmer than belonging. If your own team feels too different to work, remember that miracles often begin as mismatched hands around a sketch in the rain.